The other thing is, I'd like to say tomorrow, the talk on the 8 worldly conditions. I won't talk so much because there's not very much to talk about. So I would prefer that you ask questions, either verbally or put it down in writing. You can write, if you want tonight, you can think of all the questions, or tomorrow morning. You can think of all your questions, write them on pieces of paper and give it to me, and tomorrow afternoon I'll try to answer them. How do we judge whether what we read or study is correct? Different people will come to different conclusions. The conclusion that a wise man comes to is likely to be different from what a foolish person will conclude. So in the suttas, the Buddha said, there are 5 things that block us from seeing things clearly, and these are called Pancha Nivarana. Pancha means 5. Nivarana means hindrances. 5 hindrances. The first one is sensual desire. Sensual desire. Or lust. The second one is ill will or anger. The third one is sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor. Sleepy. Fourth one is restlessness. Restlessness and remorse. When you are remorseful, you are restless inside. The fifth one is doubt. Doubt. And these 5 hindrances envelop all of us. But the degree of these 5 hindrances is different for different people. That's why you see some people, their IQ is very high. Some people, IQ is very low. Now when we meditate, we reduce these 5 hindrances, provided you practice tranquility meditation. When we practice samatha or tranquility meditation, we try to get a hold of our mind. It's not easy to get a hold of our mind. An uncontrolled mind is a source of great suffering, a source of great misery. A controlled mind is a source of great happiness. So, you see, all of us, the mind is always flowing, This flowing of the mind is called asava, uncontrolled mental outflows. The mind is the nature of the mind to flow. This tendency of the mind to flow is so fierce that normally we are always thinking of something, right? Either we have stray thoughts, or we daydream, or we fantasize. And when we go to sleep, this circuit inside won't turn off. It will make you dream. And what you dream depends on yourself. If that person is very sensual, he'll dream of sensual thoughts. If that person is violent, that person will dream of violent thoughts. So, it is because of this that people like a story. People like to watch TV, watch videotapes, because they like a story. Because you like to imagine, you like these stories. So it's basically because of this that life goes on. You want to be somebody, you want to do something, so you come back again and again to achieve something. Some people come back to be a rich man. Some people come back because they're still in love with a certain person, so we want to come back and marry that person. So we come back again and again for various reasons. So when we meditate and we practice tranquility meditation, we try to get a hold of our mind, try to control our mind, stop it from flowing. And this is not easy to do. So the Buddha said, one meditation object is to watch the breath. Watch the breath. So when the breath goes in and then goes out, you know that it goes in, goes out. Just don't do anything except sit straight and watch the breath go in and go out. But as you watch the breath, after a while, you start thinking again. Then you remember, you pull it back to the breath again. You watch the breath. But in order to make it easier for you to watch the breath consistently, normally we do counting. We do two things. Say for example, when the breath goes out, you count 1. When it goes in, you don't count. When it goes out again, you count 2. Mentally, inside. When it goes in, goes out, then 3. Goes in, goes out 4. Goes in, goes out 5. Up to 10. Then after that, back to 1. And then 2, and 3, 4, up to 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you start thinking, start daydreaming, then when you come to 10, you forget, then you go 11, and 12, 13, 14, then suddenly you notice, you go back to 1 again. So in this way, you keep on doing this. Initially, you find 2 of the hindrances very strong. One is the restlessness. The restlessness will make it very difficult for you to stay with your object of meditation, just watching the breath. You find it difficult because the mind is restless. It will pull you think about your studies, or for a person working, you'll think about office problems. For a person with a family, you'll think of family problems. So the first obstacle in meditation is restlessness. The second one is sloth and torpor. Either you're sleepy or you cannot see your breath clearly. So you keep on practicing, and if you actually in meditation, if you want to progress, you have to let go of your attachments, let go of many worldly things. That is why people wear the robe and become a monk, so that they can practice meditation full time. So as you keep on practicing, meditation is something that you cannot see the progress in a short while. It's just like a child growing. If you see the child every day, you don't see the growth. But after 1-2 years, then you see. So in the same way, meditation, after 1-2 years, then probably you might see some progress. So you keep on practicing until you're able to follow your breath without thinking stray thoughts. And then if you're able to do that, then because the mind is not scattered. Normally the mind is scattered because your energy goes out through your eyes, goes out through your ears, through your nose, your tongue, your body, and your thinking mind. So because our energy, the mental energy is scattered, when you close your eyes, everything is dark, right? But if you are able to focus on this meditation, so that all your energy, all your attention is only on your breathing, nothing else. As you are able to do this, slowly, the world recedes from you. The world you will find, slowly you will realize, is so real because your eyes are open, your ears are open, etc. It's so real. But when you go into your mind, slowly it recedes away from you, this world. And then, if you're able to focus only on your breathing, slowly the mind will light up. The mind will become bright. Why? Because originally the mind was bright. But it's only because the mind is scattered that it's become dark. So when the When the mind becomes bright, then the bliss arises. A bliss which is not like ordinary worldly happiness. So if you are able to practice in that way consistently, then the mind becomes charged with energy, and then your hindrances reduce. When your hindrances reduce, and because you are able to bring your mind to a focus, so next time when you study anything or you consider any problem, you are able to focus your mind very sharp, and then you can see things very clearly. If you have a very wishy-washy, scattered mind, it's not much use to you. Okay, so meditation is the way. What is the Pure Land? Pure Land is the teaching in Mahayana Sutra or discourse. By the way, maybe some of you may not know, in Buddhism we have two main schools. These two main schools are Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada countries are like Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia. And we wear this type of robe. Monks wear this type of robe. This is the original Buddha's robe. And then Mahayana Buddhism started 500 years after the Buddha's passing away. Mahayana Buddhism. So you find that these Mahayana texts, Mahayana books, what they call sutras, discourses, are later, 500 years later. And because they were later, they always talk about small vehicle and big vehicle. They call themselves Mahayana, which means big vehicle. And they call us Hinayana, small vehicle. So their books always have this kind of differentiation. But our discourses, the four Nikayas, we don't have this kind of differentiation, because during the Buddha's time, the monks were united. The monks were not split into Mahayana and Theravada. So, and Mahayana countries are like China, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. And then an offshoot of Mahayana Buddhism, which started 1,200 years after the Buddha's passing away, is Tibetan Buddhism. Sometimes they call it Lamaism. They have the Dalai Lama and all that. That started much later. So they have other things which also is not found in original Buddhism, like mantras. Mantras are words that have no meaning. But they have a certain power. But the Buddha did not encourage us to practice that. So this Amitabha Sutra is one of the sutras that appeared later. And in this sutra, the teaching is that if you recite Amitabha Buddha's name, you will be reborn in the Pure Land, which is a kind of heaven. And they claim that it is possible because of the vow made by Amitabha Buddha. Of course, in Theravada Buddhism, we don't believe it. We don't believe that it's possible. The question is, why isn't this relationship that children respect parents not included in the 5 precepts? This respect is respect for elders. Is found in the Mangala Sutta. Mangala Sutta is discourse. What happened here is that one night, the Buddha, because of his developed mind, the Buddha slept very little every day. He slept only 1 or 2 hours every night. So quite often, 12 o'clock at night, these devas, heavenly beings, will come and visit the Buddha and talk to the Buddha. And when they come, they emit light. But only people with psychic power can see. Ordinary people cannot see. So one night, one of these devas came to ask the Buddha, what is the highest blessing? How do you get the highest blessing? And then the Buddha spoke this Mangala Sutta. The Buddha said, the first one, he said, Asevana Chabala Nang Pandita Nan Chasevana, which means not to associate with fools, to associate with the wise. This is the highest blessing. In other words, don't mix with foolish people, mix with wise people. This will bring you the highest blessing. Foolish people are people who have no moral conduct, who are practicing, who are walking the wrong path that will bring them to the woeful plains of rebirth. Wise people are those who are practicing the good path, who will bring them to a good place of rebirth. And then there's much advice given in this Mangala Sutta. For example, to stay in a suitable place. That is in our context, a suitable place is one where you can get to know the teachings of the Buddha. You can practice the teachings of the Buddha. You walk the peaceful way. And then other things like to respect our parents, to support our parents, to take care of wife and children. In other words, take care of the family. To listen to the Buddha's discourses, to discuss the Buddha's teachings, to practice meditation, to have gratitude. Gratitude, the first people we should have gratitude to are our parents, because our parents took care of us when we were helpless. So they are the first persons we should have gratitude to. In Buddhism, support, gratitude towards our parents is very, very important. If you cannot have gratitude towards your parents, you are not a good person. I mean that's pretty fundamental. To be grateful to somebody, you should be grateful to. And then a lot of advice given in the Mangala Sutta. If you just study it. So that is not included in the 5 precepts, because the 5 precepts are at the very minimum we should keep to avoid harming others. These 5 precepts is so important that in most religions you have it, and it's even in the laws of a country. For example, if you kill a human being, you will get hauled up to court, right, and sentenced to be hanged or something. And then if you steal your neighbor's things, also you get brought to the court. And if you seduce your neighbor's wife, also you'll be hauled up to the court. If you lie and cheat people, also you'll be brought to the court. So these are pretty fundamental moral conduct. That's why this is the basic. And in addition to that, the Buddha advised that lay people should keep nowadays they call it the Sabbath. The Sabbath. In Christianity they call it the Sabbath. But actually, many of you don't know that this was practiced during the Buddha's time, before Christianity. In Christianity, they practice it on the Sunday. But in the Buddha's teachings, it's on the 8th of the month, the 8th day of the lunar calendar, the 15th, the 23rd, and the 30th. In Theravada Buddhism, it's the 30th or 29th. But in Mahayana Buddhism, they made it the first lunar day. So once a week, you're supposed to keep the 8 precepts and practice. Because when you keep the 8 precepts, the extra, basically the 8 precepts is, the first is the same, not to kill, not to steal, but the third one, instead of not to commit adultery, in the 8 precepts, it is not to engage in sexual conduct. That means if a person is married, then he abstains from sexual conduct. The 4th one is not to lie, The fifth one is not to take intoxicants. The sixth one is not to eat a meal between noon and the next morning, dawn of the next morning. That means not to eat food means you can eat twice lah. You can take breakfast and you can take lunch. The reason is to not to sort of to practice the eating minimal, not to be a glutton. But that in some monasteries, like in our monastery, we allow beverage drink at night. So you want to make a Milo or a milk drink at night, it's all right. So that's the sixth precept. The seventh precept actually consists of two precepts. One is not to adorn the body, not to use cosmetics, perfume, etc., or flowers or garland, etc. And then another thing is not to see shows, to watch TV or to listen to music, etc. So that is the seventh precept. The eighth precept is not to sleep on a high and a large bed, a very comfortable bed. That's the eighth precept. So these are the eight precepts. So by keeping the eight precepts once a week, you are in effect practicing like a monk or a nun for one day of the week. So the Buddha said that is very beneficial. At least you see that you realize that life is impermanent, that we all end up in the grave in the not very distant future. So seeing the urgency, you at least strive spiritually at least once a week. Yes, they also believe in karma. That's why there is this contradiction. If you really believe in karma, then how can you believe in the rebirth in the Pure Land? Because if you totally believe this Amitabha Sutra, then even if you are an evil person, then just recite, then you can be reborn there. It's not doesn't compute. This Tiu Tong, is it? This is going into a trance. This going into a trance is something that is practiced in some of these Chinese temples. And basically what happens is that they body. So when this spirit goes into this person's body, then that person can do certain things. For example, you see in some of these Chinese temple celebrations, they put a lot of charcoal, red hot fiery charcoal, and they walk barefooted on it, and they don't get hurt. And sometimes they take the knife, cut themselves, and they don't get hurt. Sometimes, like for the Indian temple, they poke themselves with these spears and all that. And it's because the spirit is inside them that they don't get hurt. But this is a practice that from our point of view is not good. Not good, because when you invite a spirit into your body, then it seems that spirit will be usually inside there. Very hard to get it out. So sometimes but sometimes some of these spirits seem to be quite helpful. They invite the spirit into their body, and then they hold, the two men, they hold a Y-shaped fork, and then this fork can write a prescription for a medicinal prescription for somebody who's sick. And usually when they take that medicine, they get well. So some of these spirits do help people. What is the point of view of Buddhism concerning the soul? This soul is something in the Buddha's teachings. When we say soul, it means, actually the word is anatta. The word that is spoken by the Buddha is anatta. Anatta means no self or not self. And actually it means that there is no one thing that is permanent, everlasting, that doesn't change. Everything in this world is impermanent. Everything in this world is impermanent. And when we investigate ourselves, who are you? You find that generally we say we are either this body or this mind. And when you investigate deeper, you find that both of these are changing all the time. For example, our human body consists of cells, and these cells, new cells are being formed and old cells are dying every moment. And every 7 years or so, all the cells in your body will change, right? So the mind is also changing due to conditions. So there is not a single thing that stays the same. You know, even iron, which is so hard, if you make a iron bridge, after 100 years or so, the thing may collapse, right? Because you'll rust. So even such a hard thing will crumble. So more so the human body. But there is some kind of energy inside us that sort of goes from one lifetime to another lifetime. In Chinese, sometimes they call it 灵魂, 灵魂, which is something some people interpret it as a soul. It's a kind of a bundle of energy of our habits and our memories that we carry from one lifetime to another. But what the Buddha is saying, that everything is changing. Even this bundle of energy is changing all the time. And it is, how do you say, a wrong perception for us to see ourselves as this body here, as different, as dissociated from other bodies. Because this whole world around us, all these beings are actually all in our consciousness. And so, like you, this person that you consider yourself to be is part of my mind. You are actually part of me, and I am part of you. And it's because of that that if I hurt you, that my conscience pricks me. I'm actually hurting myself. If I harm you, I'm actually harming myself. You are in my world, and I'm in your world, or in your mind. So either you can say there is no self, or all beings is part of yourself. But this kind of thing is very hard to speak in words. You have to meditate and slowly investigate the Buddha's words. Somebody like the Buddha who is fully enlightened, who explain things so well for our benefit, that slowly we will come to understand. A lot of things, for example, a newcomer or somebody who is not familiar with the Buddha's teachings, sometimes like this, for example, like mind. Like in Buddhism, we say mind is so important. But somebody who is new to the Buddha's teachings, I think this is ridiculous. Why is mind so important? But when you investigate deeper, then you find that it is actually your mind that conjures up the whole world. That this whole world exists only because of your consciousness. Actually, it's mentioned in our Vinaya disciplinary books for monks and nuns that there was a person who was possessed by one of Satan's, how do you say, Satan's friends. So because he was possessed, he went around asking the monks whether they wanted to die soon, So because of that, they and also because many of them, during the Buddha's time, they didn't have medical facilities as we have now. So if you are sick, you very often had to bear your sickness. There wasn't tranquilizers and painkillers and all that. So many of them, they were very miserable and they wanted to die. So this person took their lives. So that in a way that is true. But generally the Buddha did not encourage people to take their lives unless they were already Arahant. If they are already Arahant and they have already finished their work, they are already finished the round of rebirths, they will not be reborn. And if they have physical pain, which is quite unbearable, then the Buddha indicated to them that it was blameless if they took their own lives. And there were 2 or 3 of them who were very sick, and they I don't know whether they cut their wrist or they cut their throat. But if you are an Arahant, it's alright. Actually, this word, Asubha, the Pali word is Asubha. Sometimes they translate it as contemplation of loathsomeness of the body. But maybe it should be translated as unattractiveness of the body, because Subha means attractive or beautiful, and Asubha means unattractive or not so beautiful. So the aim of that meditation is to cut our lust, because normally nature has made us to have this lust. So when a man sees a woman's body, he's excited by a woman's body, and vice versa. And normally we see a body only skin deep. We only contemplate the outside of a body. So in this meditation on the 32 parts of the body, we are supposed to recite the 32 parts of the body. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, midriff, spleen, lung, bowel, entrail, etc. So you recite the 32 parts of the body forwards and backwards, and you contemplate each one by one. So if you practice it often, then you realize the body in its entirety, inside and outside. So when you contemplate a body, you not only see the outside, you also see the inside. And then that will help you to cut lust. Then when you see Miss Universe in front of you, then you contemplate the inside. How if the body was turned inside out, it won't be attractive as Miss Universe anymore. If all the organs were hanging outside instead of inside.